This was a no-brainer. You have an opportunity to choose between New York. Yes, Phil Jackson is there, but it's still a dysfunctional franchise. It's haphazard. Carmelo isn't sure about it. An abundance of their players aren't sure about it. The city of New York isn't sure about it. A matter of fact, the only thing we're sure about is how dysfunctional it is. And obviously they're cap-strapped, and, you know, it's a rebuilding and a reclamation project that's going to be years in the making. On the other hand, you look at Golden State and Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, you have arguably the greatest shooting backcourt in NBA history. In Draymond Green, Andre Iguodala, Harrison Barnes, you've got talent there. Even when Bogut doesn't want to be bogus, he can give you something in terms of a big man presence. And the city is probably the best home crowd in existence at this moment in time. And regardless of what I consider to be their foolish decision to let go of Mark Jackson, there's no denying that the Golden State Warriors ownership are a bunch of guys that care a great deal about winning. They care a great deal about their franchise. They do have some knowledge about what they're doing. I don't agree with their decision to let go of Mark Jackson, but it doesn't mean they deserve our disrespect. So in the end, it was a clear decision, not to mention the fact, as Adrian Wojnarowski for Yahoo Sports reported, and he's absolutely right, Phil Jackson and the New York Knicks didn't want to guarantee Steve Kerr's fourth year until the 11th hour. They kept giving a 3-year deal. Now, you know that has James Dolan written all over it, because if that's Phil Jackson's man and there was no plan B, why the hell would Phil Jackson care about a fourth year? It ain't his money. It's got to be Dolan that stepped into the fray and was procrastinating on guaranteeing a fourth year for Kerr, where Golden State was willing to give him the 5 years, $25 million deal, and they're only a 55-minute flight from his home in San Diego with his lovely wife and family. So all of those things being considered, it was a relatively easy decision. My dismay is not that Steve Kerr got the job. I think he deserves an opportunity to coach on this level. I actually think he's going to do a good job, and he's an incredibly nice man, so I wish him luck. My problem is that he had his pick of the litter, it appeared, when he's never coached a day in his life. It is not something that I see happen for black coaches. And, Skip, in case you haven't noticed, there's a few people losing their jobs, and the people that are replacing them, none of them happen to be black. Stan Van Gundy in Detroit, Steve Kerr in Golden State, the list goes on and on. Yep. We're seeing black coaches fall by the wayside, but I'm not hearing Lionel Hollins' name. This man went to the Western Conference Finals last year. Not even a sniff. I'm thinking about stuff like that.
I read his name affiliated with the Lakers search, I think.
Yes,
yesterday.
It better be.
Okay.
It should be. It should be.
I think most people thought that Steve Kerr would wind up with his mentor Phil in New York. That it was only a matter of time, as the reports earlier this week indicated, that they would finally reach some agreement and break through their impasse over 4 versus 5 years, that it was a matter of negotiation getting finished. So I'm shocked by this only because I still think the Phil job was a safer and better job for Steve than this job. I'm going to say it again. Mark Jackson is going to be a tough act to follow in Golden State. As you pointed out many times, Stephen A., this was his 3rd year there. 2 years ago, of course, they went 47-35, beat Denver 4-2 in the first round of the playoffs, lost to San Antonio in the second round 4-2. And this year, they up it to 51-31 and take the Clippers to 7 games. Pretty good. Hey, pretty great. I still don't get it. I'm not sure that locker room gets it. Steve Kerr, as we all know, terrific basketball mind, great guy. That may be his strongest point, is what a great guy he is. But at the first sign of trouble next regular season, first 2-game, 3-game losing streak, you know where the criticism is going to be aimed at the new head coach. Oh, no more Mark Jackson. New coach Steve Kerr has never coached a dribble in his life. Wow, he's going to be on the hot seat pretty quickly there, even though he's got the blessing, obviously, the owner and the CEO and the GM. They love him. But do the players love him? Because we know they love Mark Jackson. So that's why I thought this job's a little dicier. In the Western Conference, I know what you say about the backcourt shooting tandem. I don't know if they're the greatest ever, but they're really good. And I know if Bogut is right, it'll make them a little bit better. But they're in the West. And if Melo does decide to stay with Phil in the East, I'm not going to write them off. And I'm not going to say that that couldn't be a much quicker rebuild, quote unquote, than you're talking about. I don't know that it's death and destruction of the Knicks.
Well, it's a couple of things to consider. Maybe, one of the things that Kerr would have had to do was participate in the recruiting of Carmelo Anthony. And if you're Carmelo Anthony, you're asking yourself, Phil Jackson coached Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen to world championships.
Sure.
He coached Shaq and Kobe to world championships. He came out of retirement to coach Kobe, Gasol, and Bynum to championships. And on top of it all, he was willing to come out of retirement again just a year and a half ago with suspect health compared to what it is now and coach the Lakers again. So if you're not willing to coach Carmelo Anthony, what does that say? And if you're Steve Kerr, you're thinking, is Carmelo Anthony really going to want to stay to play for me? That's a legitimate question. Secondly, you got Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, like I said. Think about the comparison. Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, no disrespect whatsoever, but that's a better option than Raymond Felton and J.R. Smith or Iman Shumpert.
It's
just a fact. Yeah. And so when you look at it from that perspective, that's even more attractive. Then you combine it with the reality that the Knicks organization, if you're fighting over a fourth guaranteed year, you know if you're Steve Kerr, that's not Phil Jackson. You know that's got to be James Dolan. Now, I haven't spoken to Knicks, so I can't verify that officially in this capacity. But, I mean, it's common sense. It walks like a duck and quacks like a duck. It ain't a damn mongoose. If you're Phil Jackson, you're not going to care about guaranteeing Steve Kerr a fourth year if that's your guy. But you're Dolan, and that's the position you took. So, in the end, it is what it is, but here's what it comes down to, y'all. Phil Jackson should pick up the phone right now and call Mark Jackson.